Hello, I'm Louise Fallon. I'm a senior data scientist in digital and data, and I've been asked to talk a bit more about my job, my role, and a bit about my career journey. So I'll start off with what it is that I do and what we've been doing here. So we're a relatively new and growing team in digital and data, and we're looking specifically at customer data and trying to identify trends and, most importantly, predict what our customer's going to do, or what the best thing might be for us to do to communicate to them, give them a personalised experience, or nudge them to spend more with us or become a higher value customer. So a lot of that is predicting what people are going to spend, predicting what people might buy, and trying to identify what the best offers are for them, which is what I've been working on so far, but obviously lots of scope for us to think about broader questions to do with customers, what they're thinking, what they might be interested in hearing about from us. So career journey, I started my career working for IBM as a big data and analytics consultant. So I was working for lots of different companies, for IBM, for a different company, usually across a whole range of different industries. So insurance, banking, oil and gas, and consumer goods. So lots of different things. So really what the business was doing was less important than kind of how the data was moving and what we were doing with the data. And I learned there across lots of kind of big corporate projects how tech systems fit together, like all the terminology for digital and data type projects, and lots of kind of peripheral pieces about how big companies work and how they deliver digital projects and projects that are related to data. And at the end of that period of time, I was working with a customer goods or consumer goods company that were putting all of their different customer databases globally into one central database. And our job, IBM's job, was helping them kind of put all the data into one place, which was slightly more boring. But we did a consulting piece for them to understand, once they've got all their customer data globally into one place, what could they do with it? Customer lifetime value, brand switching, offer optimization, which all sounded really, really cool. But if I would have stayed there on that project, I would have probably been managing that project rather than doing the cool insights piece. So at that point I left to do a master's in data science to learn how to do the codey type stuff myself. And focus a bit more on machine learning. And so I did that at Imperial for a year, which is a really practical degree. I was also doing some consulting work while I was doing that for a big bank on whether or not we could identify gender discrimination and whether people were getting promoted, which is really interesting, a cool little side project. And since then I've been working in data tech startups, one of which was trying to predict which ingredients were going to be cool based on Twitter data. And the other one was trying to identify financial crime or patterns of non-standard financial behaviour or criminal behaviour using clustering technology, which are both really interesting, really specific. And after that, I joined M&S and started working for digital and data. So a big part of my role, as well as dealing with the data and writing algorithms and writing code to understand what's happening with the data, is to translate that back into human terminology or business terminology to understand or to communicate back kind of what we've found and what it is that our models are doing and what maybe their limitations are. In terms of whether there's a trick for this, I'm not sure there really is, apart from thinking about when I didn't know this, whether I would have understood what somebody was saying to me. There's a specific concept in machine learning about false positives and false negatives, and sometimes you have to put that into an analogy of like in medicine, if you get a false positive test or a false negative test, and whether that means you're sick and we don't find out, or you're not sick and we do find out. So really thinking about communicating to people who might not necessarily understand. I did a lot of work when I was at IBM working with people for whom English was not their first language, and I think that really helped, because you have to really use simple words like up, down, rather than use some of the more esoteric terminology, because I think in lots of industries, and specifically in data science, there's lots of complicated words, but it's not necessarily necessary to always use those when you can explain it in a more simple piece. And then another part of that is understanding which of the complexities you really need to share. Like, some people just care that you've built a model, and some people want to know what the details of that are, but really to understand which bit of what I've done is important to this person and why would they care about whether it's highly accurate or it overweights people's false positives or false negatives. So I think just thinking about the point of view of that person, being a bit empathetic to understand what they have time to try and figure out and what you can explain to them a bit more simply. So we're really, really lucky here because we have an excellent and growing digital and data community. And lots of different kinds of events, both across the whole business. So we had a data festival, which was really exciting. There was an animated robot in the form of our Chief Digital and Data Officer, which was not the key draw point. It was nice, but there was also a big conference and then lots of satellite meetings about specific things that people were doing in data science and analytics, which I gave a talk about an introduction to data science. We also have some pieces that were a bit more for practitioners. So monthly we share what some people have been doing and do a panel discussion, which is all really interesting about different types. Maybe about people's roles and career progression within digital and data, maybe about how we're managing diversity within digital and data, loads of different topics, which is also a good chance to meet a bunch of people, and some more pieces that are specifically for people coding and using some of the tools. So we have coffee and coding sessions that are run by a data science team in food. And we run through code that we've produced and what it does, either in terms of tools and techniques that we can share or in terms of projects that we've worked on that we can share. So there's loads of opportunities to talk and discuss, and I try and contribute a lot to that, which is really useful to help make sure that I've properly understood something and made something that's robust and shareable to make it in the format before I can share it. And it's also a little bit selfish that it's really good for me to meet everybody in the community and understand what they know and what they've been working on, because you never really want to reinvent the wheel if somebody's already done it, to go and chat to them. So it's great that we can do that both in all of those meetings and then across like Microsoft Teams, that we can start chatting and making sure that we're standing on the shoulders of giants or working off of other people's knowledge to make sure that we're not wasting time and we can learn from what other people are doing. So that's a bunch of stuff that we've done previously, and obviously there's lots of stuff to look forward to. So our digital and data away days and some of our more monthly catch-ups, but a big one that's coming up soon, very soon. So next Thursday is the Digital Expo, where there's going to be a bunch of zones with different people across the business talking about what they're doing, and data science will be there. We'll have a stand, an interactive stand. Won't spoil too much about what that is, but hopefully we'll see lots of people there that will help explain what we do and also actually help us in some of the projects that we're doing at the moment. So there's a statistic about this industry, digital and data, that men outnumber women 4-1. And actually at M&S we are better, so we run at about 40%, but that's still not quite 50-50 and not quite ideally what we'd like to see it being. And some of that I think is a bit outside of our control. I think that we as a business don't discriminate at the point when we get CVs and think, oh, these men are better for this role than the women are. We get a different number of CVs in. It's a huge number of men compared to women just applying for these kind of technical jobs, especially in my team, which then means that we have to have things in place in terms of maybe waiting until we have 50-50 before we read CVs. So some men that have applied might not get seen until there's enough female CVs so that we can, at least at our point, rank them 1-1. Some of that hiring type stuff. I think in terms of encouraging that balance, there are things that we can do like outreach programs. I think some of this just communicating outwards what it is that we do, and that there are senior women, and we have in our senior leadership team like women in senior positions, which is great, and showing that there are people here doing that. I think specifically in analytics and data science, there's a piece that's really about writing code and having really technical skills, which might generally bias towards STEM degrees, which are more highly, have a male bias, but also a lot of that explaining and understand what the business really needs and understanding what the data is really saying is actually quite linked to skills that you might get from like a history degree or an economics degree, especially economics actually, which has less of a male-female gap. So potentially picking or, trying to hire from those industries, or maybe people who have an academic psychology background have a lot of skills that actually we're really interested in, especially for customer data, that some of those areas might be things that we can pull people from or communicate about the jobs that we have that are, understanding rather than coding to a certain extent. Obviously you need both, but playing up those kind of areas and talking about that to people or outside of the business or the industry at the moment might come a way to help bringing that balance a bit closer. So it's a really exciting place to be. One of the great things about data science at the moment is it's not still massively in its infancy, but it's still probably not grown out to be a very mature industry. So I think there'll be lots of change within what the job titles are within data science. So we've got a team of 8 people that are, data scientist or lead data scientist or senior data scientist, whereas actually I think that will spread out into being a bit more, machine learning engineers, more on the technical side, a bit more about problem solving and data science for business, which is probably a bit more where I'd go into. So I'm really excited to see how those things will change. Luckily in this business there's loads of problems that need to be solved, and there's loads of data that we have access to, which is excellent. So I don't see any of that running out, which is good. I can see lots of opportunities. But yeah, I'm just really interested to see kind of how the industry starts to mature and progress over the next couple of years.